Alrighty, good morning, Wildcats. Please help me in welcoming author Marion Marchetto. She actually used to live here in Navarre, and her husband once had a job at our school. So, how are you doing this morning?
I'm fine, thank you, Faye. And good morning, Wildcats.
Alrighty, sounds good. Can you give us a short bio on yourself and tell us how you got started writing?
I'd be happy to. I first wanted to start writing about first grade, as I'm a good reader at that point, and I really got interested in writing around 11, 12 years old, probably the age of most of the students here. And after that, went on to high school. I was part of my creative writing club there and also a member of my newspaper staff. After that, after high school, didn't do much writing. I got married, found jobs, had a life, but I still wrote on and off. Little pieces, a little poetry, a little short story, nothing special. After I retired and moved away from here, actually moved away from Connecticut, moved to Florida. That's when I started to get serious about writing. I had started a book in 1998 when I was inspired by my husband's mother's house, and published it once we were here living in Navarre, and that's when my writing career took off.
Oh, that is so cool. Now, how many books have you written?
A total of 9.
Which one's your favorite?
I have to say I like every one, because each one is a little special, but for me, I think Oak Cliff, because it's a little departure from my norm. It's a little more dark, and it's a little more twisted.
Alright. Now, do you have any alternative endings? Did you have a definite end in mind when you wrote your books?
There are always alternate endings to anything I start. I sometimes start out with the end of the book first, really. And then I go, gee, how can I build a story about this? Other times I start the story and say, oh, this is how it's going to end in my mind, and then after that, something will happen along the way in the story that changes it again, and then I may even go back to the first ending that I decided on. So yes, there could have been alternate endings.
Okay. Do you have any usual writing habits? Do you handwrite your stories? Do you type them?
For habits, well, I am really kind of strange when it comes to habits. I like to get in the mood by wearing hats, wearing scarves. I have a bunch of little things on my head. I even have a doggy hat that looks like a sombrero for when I want to get into the mood. Now, for my next book that I'm writing, I also made a crown for myself of seashells.
Ooh, I wonder what that has to do with. Okay. So do you have a favorite writing spot then, where you like to write and wear your hats?
Mostly in my little office at home. Been known to wear them out sitting on my porch. For sometimes I forget they're on my head, and I get strange comments from my neighbors.
Who's been your biggest supporter? Your neighbors, your family?
Well, that goes without saying. It's my husband. He does a lot for me so that I can write. Keeps me fed in clean clothes. I also have a friend, a longtime friend, who's the one who pushed me into publishing my first book. And she's been with me throughout the whole process. And I can't forget my 3 cats. Well, one is now passed, but the 2 with me now. They're my editors. They sit on my keyboard, block the screen and tell me when it's time to get up and feed them, so I take a break.
All right. How many hours a day do you spend on average writing, do you think?
I'm going to say on an average between 2 to 4. Sometimes it's a little less. Sometimes if I'm into the process and focused on it, it can go 6 to 8 hours. So average 2 to 4 hours a day.
What's the most unusual question that anyone's asked you in your writing career?
That one. No one's ever asked me that before. So, unusual questions, I really don't know. they're all pretty easy to answer.
We're all quirky people on the inside.
Yeah, we are.
So, do you hide any secrets in your books that only a few people will find, little Easter eggs, fun things like that?
Oh, yes. There's something in every book that I've written that's a little secret meant for either a certain person or about a certain person or place or maybe just a group.
Do you want to give us a hint, or are you going to keep that for the readers to find out?
Well, I can tell you that in Oak Cliff, there is a family that is based on myself and my parents. But since there are 3 or 4 families in that book, you have to guess which one it is.
Oh, okay. Does writing become easier once you've written a few books, or does it become harder?
The answer to that is yes and no. Yes, because you learn as you go, and practice makes perfect. However, the answer is no, because once you start writing, you realize how much you still have left to learn.
How do you decide what to write next? Can you tell us a little bit of your next book?
Oh, smart cookie. How do I decide what to write next? Well, for the last 5 books was easy because it was a series. And so I knew I had to end the series. But this next book, I had 5 different ideas jumping around in my head. So you know there's going to be 5 more books, guys. This one, I want to tell a story that's going to relate to a problem out in our world right now, and that's the decline of coral reefs. And because I've worked with people who study this, I want to be able to bring it to the forefront, but I want it to be done in a fun way. So we're going to introduce some mermaids, and some pirates, and some scientists. And that's what we're going to be talking about.
Wow, that sounds interesting. I heard that you're writing at least 4 more, so do you have a magic number that you're going for?
Nope, not until the ideas dry up and they start to become like cookie cutters. That's when I'll stop. I don't want to have a formula.
That makes sense. Okay. Would you like to see any of your books become movies?
Of course. Of course. I'd love to sell movie rights. Do you happen to know, anybody happen to know a producer? No? Okay. Oh, okay. How about the media room here? Would they like to produce my books?
Well, we always could. You never know.
Well, maybe one of you could star in it.
If you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
I actually wrote myself an answer for this one because I knew I'd forget it. Okay, let me just check my little cheat sheet here. Yes, if I could tell myself something as a younger person, I would say find your writing voice and use it wisely. Don't waste your talent writing dribble unless it's practice, okay? Make sure you say something with your writing, make sure it's understandable, and above all, be true to yourself.
Is there something that you'd like to say to all the young writers at Woodlawn?
Of course. The first thing I want you to do is go out and read, and read some more. And then after you're done doing that, I want you to observe how your favorite writer writes. How do they put things together? What do you like about their writing? What do you not like about their writing? And then after that, practice. Practice your writing. Keep a little journal. It could be on your computer, it could be a notebook. Describe things that you like and learn how to look at things through the eyes of a reader. And that's it. It's easy.
Good advice. And if you're looking for any books, go ahead, come to the library. We've got tons. So I noticed that you talked about writing dribble. Have you ever written any books that you say should never see the light of day?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I have. The very first book I started, oh my goodness, was back in the 1970s. And it was so bad. I put it away for like 5 or 6 years, picked it up and looked at it and got, oh my Lord. Full of cliches, full of bad grammar, full of the worst things you could possibly think of. But I got it out of my system and I learned how to make it better. Of course, I threw that away.
What do you think holds for the writers out there?
I think it's full of promise. If you learn, like I say, to find your voice, you can have a say in how the world is put together. You can make observations. I think there's always going to be a need for a writer, whether it's a fiction writer, a nonfiction writer, a journalist. I think there's still a lot to be learned and a lot to be covered.
There's almost always one more story to write. Okay. So have you read anything recently that might be of an interest to the students out there at Woodlawn? Do you have a favorite book?
Well, actually, I brought a copy for the library of a book that I recently read. It's by the author Aaron Safronoff, and it's called Sunborn Rising Beneath the Fall. It's a, how do I want to describe it? It's a fantasy book. It's about 3 creatures who live in a land called Cerulean, and they are all in the treetops because the earth just isn't there anymore. The earth is covered in trees, and the base of the earth is now water, but the trees are dying. And these 3 creatures, all of different races, band together to find a solution, and they uncover a villain.
Ooh.
Very good. And the book's illustrated. The authors created a website where you can go and play some interactive games. And I think they're looking at making it into a movie while the sequel is being written.
That sounds great. What book or author has influenced you the most? Is it one recent like that, or is it something older from your childhood?
Who's influenced me the most? I'm going to say there are 2 authors who have influenced me. One is Charles Dickens, simply because he puts a lot of detail into his work, and you really get into the setting of the story. And of course there's Stephen King, my secret passion, because he's twisted and he always puts some kind of a little into his story. Books, the ones that influenced me growing up were Gone with the Wind and To Kill a Mockingbird. I love those 2 stories. I've read them dozens of times.
Is there anything that you'd just like to say in general to our school, to the faculty, to anyone?
Oh, absolutely. First, I'd love to thank the faculty and your principal for having me here, not just today, but a few times previous to this. And I always find a great welcome here with the Wildcats. I just love you guys to pieces. And anytime you want me to come back or Skype with me, I'm here for you. Any questions at all?
Alrighty. Well, it's been wonderful having you, Miss Marchetto, and I hope that you come back and you visit us again soon.
I'd love to. Thank you, Faith.
Alrighty.
Nice to have you here.
Nice to have you too. Bye-bye, Miss Marchetto, and
Thank you.
goodbye, Wildcat.
Bye, Wildcats. Have a nice day. And hats off to reading.